Vice President Bharrat Jagdeo addresses Guyana Police Corruption Probe and drug smuggling. Here is more from his recent press interview.
Tabuk News on June 26, 2019. And it says, Crime Chief placed on leave pending corruption probe, 2019. Now, Lyndon Alves was sent on leave. This is what it says. Crime Chief Lyndon Alves has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of an investigation into the recent exposure of a network of alleged corruption in the Guyana Police Force. Placed on leave. Now this was the man, remember President Granger, when he selected the top leaders, the one Indo-Guyanese who was acting there then as Commissioner of Police, he didn't choose him. Chose a number of other people, the Commissioner and 4 deputies. And he said he's choosing people who are not unbribable. That was President Granger. On the 24th of May of 2019, he conferred the Discipline Services Medal on Mr. Alves. And then a month later, he was sent on leave for an alleged corruption network. Nobody could confirm. If you read the article, I don't want to go on too long. If you read the article, nobody was saying who sent him on leave in the police force, but he was sent on leave. A month later, the Commissioner of Police said he'd been cleared of all wrongdoing. And guess who investigated him? The Office of Professional Responsibility. I didn't hear about FBI. I didn't hear about external agencies. In this case, we got SOCU to do it. That was set up by the law to do that. When in relation to Brutus, there are allegations of corruption against Brutus. He's on leave and SOCU has been ordered to do the investigation by the government. In this case, it was done internally. This is the duplicity of people like Norton. They did it through the OPR and then cleared the person and he went back to work. So they would have you believe that this was different. If every time we have to build local institutions, and I can say to you that at SOCU, there'd be no pressure by anyone in the police force because the president himself is looking into this matter and all these matters. There'll be no pressure by anyone internally to alter the course of this investigation or any other investigation of malpractices anywhere in the country or in the police force. But having said that, we don't want to vilify policemen too, because somehow people believe it's an open season on policemen. A lot of them do a great job and they're hard-working people serving this country. And we must not, for the purpose of politics or for ratings or to get a good newspaper article, vilify people in the police force. And sometimes that is what you see. What Robson Ben said was an honest issue. Didn't mean to vilify policemen all over the place. He said, you know, we have concerns about procurement, as we have in many other places. I've been speaking about this. And we didn't sweep it under the carpet. Here is a minister expressing a concern to the policemen themselves. And we have done so here. It wouldn't have been done in a closed door room with 3 persons. The minister did it openly Because within this government, that is how we address these matters. And the people have to be mature enough, policemen and the society, to say you can openly discuss these things without vilifying all the policemen who are there and saying, oh, they all engage in procurement fraud or corruption. The president already spoke to some people, may spoke about jewelry and all of that nonsense. I see that coming out. But people can express themselves freely here. Once they stick with the code of conduct in the police force and the requirement for proper uniform, we don't live in a caliphate or a repressive, tyrannical society. People do their job. We want people to get wealthier and grow every Guyanese, whether it's by acquiring a house lot, a home, a car, whatever, a scholarship. We want people to grow and to freely express themselves. But suddenly a major vilification of policemen, but also somehow saying, oh, this is a government cover-up. Did you ever hear on the APNU a minister expressing to his officers and others, we got to work within this force to make sure our image is pristine? It wasn't an accusation. It was bringing an issue that we've been speaking about at the national level to everybody. Why should we not explore these things openly as a country? And the willingness of a government to explore this openly should be commended. And now we have a capability to investigate people, and an impartial capability right here. They want to, in their period, they did it, and even worse, they cover up, all the cover up. Because we have a ton, I didn't give you the details about what happened in a small group within the police force in that period. People used to share a ton of things at the leader of the opposition office. If you go back, I released several documents as leader of the opposition, documents showing corruption. I released it in opposition, and they did nothing about it. Here, this government, there are accusations, we're investigating it, and we're not doing it through OPR, we're doing it through SOCU. So this approach is just creating an issue for them to speak about, we're covering up this matter and vilifying policemen in the whole issue. You don't hear them speak anything about. I've looked through the reports that came to APNU now recently by the investigative arms of this government that went to APNU about gold smuggling, including a report on the people who were caught taking the chains out the airport. That same individual who is the kingpin of the operation was identified on the APNU in a report, and nothing happened. But now that we're digging back into it because they'll be charged for money laundering, we found the report there. They knew of this. About a year ago, maybe 6 months ago or so, I said to you, we're paying serious attention to gold smuggling, because when the issue of a decline in declarations came about, the president had several meetings with participants in the sector and read the Riot Act to them. And we said here that there'll be consequences to people. People could lose their permits to mine if we can trace them directly to these illegal activities, and that we are concerned that there may be rings operating in Guyana that are siphoning off the gold or smuggling the gold out. The gold out. I said to you 6 months ago, long before the Mohammed issue came about, that there are investigations going on. Now, I've seen the last few days one of the major rings that involved Chinese national that was buying a lot of the gold and smuggling this gold out, particularly to Suriname, that the ring has been busted out of that undercover work that's been going on for a while. Look how much it got in the newspapers. Look, these are the stories written. No, nothing about it. But this is a major ring, and they caught people. It was operating in some of the hotels. They were buying large quantities of gold and shipping this gold out of the country. Wanted bulletins have been issued for many of them. We believe it was a form of money laundering, but also gold smuggling. And the undercover operation has started yielding the individuals now. And it's a major, major operation that has gone on for nearly 6 months. But it goes without much notice in the newspapers because it doesn't support the narrative that this government has been looking into all of these issues. One, the ring smuggling the gold out to New York that they caught, and it was through undercover operations that happened too, because it was nobody would have known that they had this gold coated with silver that they were taking out with these big chains and basically tons of gold taken out through this method. That had to come through investigative work. That ring was busted and they're facing criminal procedures now through and money laundering. A second ring has been busted here. We've written to the US to give us all the details about the 10,000 kilograms of gold that they claim that the Mohammeds smuggled out of this country. We've asked them for all the details so we can take action on that matter, because we don't have the information. So we're waiting the information from the US so we can take action on it. All of these matters were there on the government's desk before. And this is how we have approached it. So they can go. Norton and Sherrod Duncan talks about this, but they don't have any interest in highlighting all of this. How the government has approached the allegations of corruption in the procurement system in the police force. We have approached it in a professional manner, and there's a government agency dedicated to this, to investigation, and they'll be investigating this matter, and there'll be no cover-up. And secondly, how we are approaching this whole issue with gold smuggling. Those were the two main things that they spoke of at the press conference. Not the press conference, the interview, Sherrod Duncan and Norton. But one other issue that Norton, I think, allowed to slip was the issue about they've complained to the diplomatic community that the government is linked up with drug dealers. So I think he let it slip out. So I had not intended to speak about this matter. But he thinks we're unaware of what the complaints have been. We have a robust engagement with the diplomatic community, and we have good relations with countries. And some of the people that they complain to every time there is a mission that comes in this country, or when they meet some of the diplomats here, they complain, oh, the PPP is linked up with drug dealers. That's one. Well, they did that in the period running up to 2015, that we're in the pocket of the drug dealers. So much so that a US report came out that we had given Roger Khan a large tract of forest land as a government. And it was in one of the US drug reports. We were surprised as to where this came from. So we asked the US government. We said, it's not true. You should correct the report. And they said, well, the report is out. It's hard to correct. And guess how we found out who told them this? You had WikiLeaks. And then the cables and the correspondence from the embassy here up to Washington named the individual who told them this. And guess who he was? One of the PNCR members. That is what they were doing then. Lying, vilifying the government quietly so that it will get into the US circles. Oh, we're linked, we gave Roger Khan this large tract of forested land, which was not true, was a lie, blatant lie. We would have never found out who did this unless you had WikiLeaks. So they're back at this again. I think this worked well for them in that period. So they're back at this again, every mission that comes out. And Norton said it. He said, oh, we are complaining to the diplomatic community that this government is linked to the drug dealers and the underworld. But you have a US presence here now in the form of the DEA, and they know about the collaboration that we have on these matters. But that's not the only thing they talk about. So every time they meet these diplomats, they have a standard script. Who meets the diplomat, they talk about we're raiding the sovereign wealth fund. So imagine the sovereign wealth fund under APNU that they pass after the no confidence motion, that is the Natural Resources Fund, had a direct charge from the government on the sovereign wealth fund. So you didn't have to go through the appropriation process through Parliament. You could have charged bills directly to the fund, not transparent. We removed that. Every cent spent on now oil money has to go through the Parliament of Guyana. Every single cent. And it can't be charged against the sovereign wealth fund. It has to be charged against the money that comes to the budget. The sovereign wealth fund, whatever remains there, can only be invested into the future by a board, not by the Minister of Finance any longer, which we changed, but by a board of directors headed by Major General retired Joe Singh. A board with international participants there. I think even the UK. So this is what's done there. Secondly, we changed the law about receipts into the fund. We said, because remember, they didn't put the 18 million into the fund. The 18 million signing bonus. Jordan said he thought it was a gift to the government of Guyana. They hid it from the consolidated fund and from the balance sheet of the central bank. So it existed in no man's land. Couldn't be audited by the Auditor General because it's not part of the consolidated fund and it's not part of the central bank balance sheet. So again, it would miss the audit process there. kept it outside. We filed a case in the court for it to be transferred into the consolidated fund. They made some excuses, all sorts of excuses. I don't want to go into, I'm talking too much about that because you can read the history of it, but please read the history of it. So now what did we change it to? 100 times I've said this. We now have a tougher law than any country in the world, including the United States and maybe Europe, about any sovereign wealth fund in a European country. And they're complaining to those ambassadors and well, not ambassadors, the diplomats from these countries and representatives about the sovereign wealth fund. Every cent that goes into the fund has to be gazetted and notified to the Parliament within 3 months of receipt, or else the Minister of Finance can go to jail for 10 years.
Thank you for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments section. Look out for more broadcasts soon, and please subscribe.